Hello, good evening, and welcome to a new episode of Arguably the Reading Quest. I am Nishant. I'm sure this video is going to be a delight to the connoisseurs of literature. So, the book I'm going to talk about today is Hermann Hesse Siddhartha. This book needs no introduction. However, let me tell you that this book was my first introduction to German literature. This book was my first serious attempt to understand existentialism. This book was my first serious plunge into understanding Buddhism and existentialism. This book was also my first conscious attempt at understanding the Bildungsroman. To a layman, this book appears like a story as usual that is happening everywhere since ages in Indian diaspora. A Brahmin boy who was born and brought up in a social and cultural milieu that was very Brahmanical, who led a Hindu way of life, left his home in search of enlightenment. Finally, either attained enlightenment or didn't attain enlightenment. There the matter ends. So this book is as simple as that. However, a closer look gives us a very different idea. So before we start, I'll just give you a glimpse of the quotes that Hess writes, the mastery of prose, the beauty of language, the enchantment that that you experience, the sheer delight, the jouissance of a language, as I'll say. So I'll start with some of the quotes, and then I'll take a rather dense and technical look into the writings of Hermann Hesse Siddhartha. So please watch till the end. This video is going to be slightly denser than my other videos, but I hope कि मजा आएगा आप सबको. ठीक है? So please enjoy. Wisdom cannot be imparted. Wisdom that a man attempts to impart always sounds like foolishness to someone else. Knowledge can be communicated, but not wisdom. One can find it, live it, do wonders through it, but one cannot communicate and teach it, says Hermann Hesse in Siddhartha. Words do not express thoughts very well. They always become a little different immediately they are expressed, a little distorted, a little foolish. And yet it also pleases me and seems right that what is of value and wisdom to one man seems nonsense to another, says Hermann Hesse. Have you also learned that secret from the river, that there is no such thing as time? That the river is everywhere at the same time, at the source and at the mouth, at the waterfall, at the ferry, at the current, in the ocean, in the mountains, everywhere, in that the present only exists for it, not the shadow of the past, nor the shadow of the future. Your soul is the whole world. This is a very quintessential quote that summarizes the quintessential philosophy of Hermann Hesse Siddhartha. I'll, give my own exposition in this quote. That the river is everywhere, there is no such thing as time. So the theme of time and timelessness are something that has preoccupied Hesse in all his novels. When someone is seeking, said Siddhartha, it happens quite easily that he only sees the thing that he is seeking, that he is unable to find anything, unable to absorb anything, because he is only thinking of the thing he is seeking, because he has a goal. Because he is obsessed with his goal. Seeking means to have a goal. But finding means to be free, to be receptive, to have no goal. You, O worthy one, are perhaps indeed a seeker. For in striving towards your goal, you do not see many things that are under your nose. So don't be a seeker, be a finder. Then says the character Siddhartha, the protagonist, I shall no longer be instructed by yoga, by Veda, by Ayurveda, by Atharva Veda, or the ascetics, or any other doctrine whatsoever. I shall learn from myself, be a pupil of myself. I shall get to know myself, the mystery of Siddhartha. He looked around as if he were seeing the world for the first time. I learned through my body and soul that it was necessary to sin, that I needed to lust, that I had to strive for property and experience nausea, and the depths of despair in order to learn not to resist them. In order to learn to love the world and and no longer compare it with some kind of desired imaginary vision of perfection, but to leave it is as it is, to love it and be glad to belong to it. The reason why I do not know anything about myself, the reason why Siddhartha has remained alien and unknown to myself is due to one thing, to one single thing. I was afraid of myself. I was fleeing from myself. I was seeking Atma. I was seeking Brahma. I was determined to dismember myself and tear away its layers of husk in order to find its unknown innermost recess, the kernel at the heart of those layers, the Atma, the life, the divine principle, the ultimate. But in doing so, I was losing myself, says Hermann Hesse in Siddhartha. So I hope you know what to expect in this book. Now, because this book is so lucidly written that hardly any exposition is needed. And that is why I thought of, delving a little deeper into it and to expose you to an exposition and a literary criticism published at California University Press, a study undertaken by Joseph Millett, the biographer of Hermann Hesse. So, my videos are hardly, well crafted. It is all random and impromptu. But this time I have tried to, take a note of it and to read it out to you majorly from that book published at California University Press by Joseph Millett. So that will give you a kind of, uh, a technical analysis. So please watch till the end. I hope you'll enjoy it. So you see about this book, the part 1 and much of part 2 of Siddhartha were written in the winter and spring of 1920. Dissatisfied with it, Hermann Hesse put the novel aside in 1920 and did not resume the work on it until the end of 1921 and did not finish it until 1922. So book कब आई ये? ये आई है अक्टूबर के 1922 में. The book appeared that October, right? Now, if you compare, there is a common line of thread uniting all the major Hesse work. Like Demian, on which I have made a video, Siddhartha was basically a cerebral experience. While Demian was a re-examination of Hermann Hesse youth in psychoanalytic term, Demian was a Jungian analysis of the evolution of a Nietzschean mind, as I have said in some of my videos. Siddhartha was a review, a systematization and culmination of his evolving thoughts. A large part of the book was essentially a retracing of Hesse's experience and thought in a calm, reflective detachment. But having exposed his protagonist, here in this case Siddhartha, to the realm of the mind and that of the body, Hesse was at loss for the conclusion. And finally, what happened when he was unable to conclude the book? The work had to be put aside again for months, and then months of hermetic living, meditation, intense preoccupation with Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Buddhistic scriptures followed. Now, this renewed grappling with Buddhism now made it possible for him to resume Siddhartha and write its vital last 4 chapters. So, if you see, पूरे book में जो last 4 chapter है ना, वो crux है सिद्धार्था का, मतलब वो soul है सिद्धार्था का, वो philosophy है उसकी, ठीक है. Now, if you're reading the book, I hope most of you are well acquainted with Brahminism, Hinduism, Buddhism. Okay. And most of you know what Atma is, what Brahma is, what ultimate, principle of reality as per Hinduism is, what Maya is, what Om and Sansar signifies. ठीक है. And to know the derivation and implication of the names like Hermann Hesse ने क्यों सिद्धार्था नाम चुना, गोविंदा क्यों चुना, वासुदेव एक नाम है उसमें कैरेक्टर, एक कमला है, कामा स्वामी है, साक्य मुनि है, ठीक है. This can enhance, yours intellectual enjoyment, but please mind it, it is unnecessary for the basic understanding of the book. The text itself is so lucid, as I have always maintained, that it provides the commentary whenever necessary. ठीक है. However, if you know these words, if you know the implication and the subtle connotation of these names, their cultural and theological significance, of course, your intellectual enjoyment is enhanced. The jouissance is prolonged. As usual, Hess was primarily intent upon coming to terms with his own life. So, an European immersed in Western ideals and plagued by the problems of a Western man. That is why, in spite of the Indian settings and plot, please mind it, Siddhartha might best be approached as a Western man's idea of Buddhism, viewed from the tradition of German existentialist fiction and Bildungsroman. I again repeat, Siddhartha might best be approached as a Western man's idea of Buddhism, viewed from the tradition of German existentialist fiction and Bildungsroman. Of all the Hermann Hesse protagonists, only Siddhartha fully realizes the ideal in all its glory that Hesse wanted to achieve. Yes, this was not an actual experience told by the way of fiction, but a possibility that could be attained. Siddhartha lived in the realm of both mind and body and exhausts both possibility and transcends them and finds himself in a third realm, that of the soul, the highest possibility where the individual lives completely in accord with himself. So, if you see, the novel is divided into three parts. The first part is that of the mind, is dedicated to the adventures of mind. The second part is dedicated to the adventures of body, lust, debauchery, adultery, sex. Now, the third part, सिद्धार्था दोनों को ट्रांसग्रेस कर जाता है, ट्रांसेंड कर जाता है और वो थर्ड पार्ट पे लैंड करता है. दैट इज द realm of the soul. और दैट इज वाई द थर्ड पार्ट, द लास्ट 4 chapters आर वेरी वाइटल टू इट. राइट. अब थोड़ा सा क्रक्स ऑफ स्टोरी देख लेते हैं. क्या है क्रक्स ऑफ स्टोरी? सो यू नो, एक सिंपल ब्राह्मण बॉय है, वो घर छोड़ता है और वो इनलाइटेंड हो जाता है. राइट. ये स्टोरी है और जो इंडिया में हमेशा से हम ये स्टोरी अलग अलग फॉर्म्स में सुनते रहे हैं. राइट. नाउ लिसन टू दिस. Siddhartha the Brahmin, once dedicated to ritual, joined the ascetic cult of Samana, met Buddha, argued with him, finally left Buddha too. He left the realm of mind behind him. ठीक है. घर छोड़ता है, वो अलग अलग एसेटिक सेक्स के साथ प्रैक्टिस करता है, वहाँ उसे सेटिस्फैक्शन नहीं होता है. फिर भगवान बुद्ध से मिलता है, भगवान बुद्ध से भी आर्ग्यू करता है. ठीक है. उसका फ्रेंड वहीं रह जाता है और वो भगवान बुद्ध को छोड़कर आगे निकल जाता है. Then his affairs with Kamla, the Nagarbadhu, the prostitute, the well-known prostitute, started. His partnership with Kamaswami, his reveling in wealth, power, lust, and sloth, and his consequent self-disgust with himself, and his attempt to commit suicide. Siddhartha left the realm of flesh completely. अब वो flesh के भी realm को छोड़ देता है. The last phase of his life begins with a return to the river. Finally, वो river के किनारे आता है. To his friend the ferryman, and to contemplation. And with his last encounter with his son, Siddhartha emerged transfigured completely. A paradoxical self-transcendence through self-realization. A paradoxical self-transcendence through self-realization. Now, a बहुत important theme है इसका, time and timelessness. There's a quintessential theme of Siddhartha. So the notion of time and timelessness, merely dabbled with in his earlier novel, evolves into a mystical philosophy in Siddhartha. Following his attempts to commit suicide, Siddhartha became increasingly intrigued by the ever-changing, yet never different, the ever-flowing, yet ever-present river. The further explanation persuades him to conclude that there is no such thing as time. The more he contemplates on the river, the more he is convinced that there is no such thing as time. The river suggests only present, no past, no future. The river simply is. It is not a was, not a will be. It is not first here and then there, but is everywhere simultaneously. Contemplating himself in the manner in which he has contemplated the river, Siddhartha realized that his very life is a river too. To concentrate life in this manner is to concentrate upon the essence upon the idea of Siddhartha and not just the ephemeral manifestation of this idea. With this, Siddhartha has experienced timelessness in what appears to be time and oneness in what appears to be multiplicity on both the individual plane and that of life. According to this mystical mode of thought and feeling, any individual at any moment is all he ever was and all he ever will be, is a moment of eternity, a past and a present. मुझे फैज़ अहमद फैज़ की एक नज़्म याद आ गई कि हर एक चीज़ वही थी कि जो है आसमां हद नज़र राह गुज़र शीशे में आसमां हद नज़र राह गुज़र शीशे में हर एक चीज़ वही थी कि जो है all that was, is and ever will be. And with this philosophy, life loses its meaninglessness. Aloneness loses its loneliness, transitoriness loses its painfulness, and death loses its fear. This is, of course, more religion than philosophy, says Joseph Millek, more of a feeling than thought. And for Hermann Hesse in 1922, it was certainly more hope than actual experience or even conviction. So it was a hope of a Western man devastated by war. So I hope you have enjoyed the video. I strongly recommend this book. Please have a fresh look at this book, which is seemingly very simple. On a second look, it is very intricate. I hope you have enjoyed the video. I hope you have subscribed to my YouTube channel, arguably the Reading Quest. If you have not done that, please press the bell icon. Please like, share, and subscribe, arguably the Reading Quest. Happy reading, all of you guys.